You may have thought, why did they buy this bike? This is often why I end up walking bikes home. So here's the scoop. We were at the auction, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. We brought those bikes back from the auction. We bought about 2 weeks ago. And you may have noticed, you may not have noticed, this one little strange, obscure motorcycle that we bought. Now if you saw it, you may have thought, why did they buy this bike? This is a 1983 Suzuki GS 750E. And it does not run. It may not have ran in 20 years. I really don't know. I was looking for an inspection sticker or something. I don't see any specific damage. It clearly sat outside. I mean, all these buttons are just faded away. It's got these sweet, well, you know what, here's something. These bar end mirrors. I'm not sure when they started doing bar end mirrors like this, but they can't be that old. I would have thought those bolts would have been rusted off by now, so maybe it's not been sitting for as long as I thought. Very faded. Let's look at the tires. Here's a good Kenda tires. If you've ever wondered how to figure out the age of your tires, there's a 4-digit number on all tires that are manufactured, and I'll show you how to decode that number. It's not really much of a code. All right, there's the number right there. 20. I can't see it from my angle right now, but 2311. 2311. That means that the tires were made in 2011, and in the 23rd week of 2011 is what that means. So that's old, but that's not as. It's only 8 years old. So at the most, this thing may have been running. Now, tires can sit on shelves for a long time. So let's say this thing ran maybe 7-6 years ago. That's not bad. So the tires don't look that bad. We're gonna get this thing running right now. So motorcycle tire dates are actually pretty important, and even more so than cars, because you have such a small contact patch actually touching the road. And because motorcycle tires are so soft, that they have more likely of actually timing out and just being too old. You know, look at the extreme of if you have like a track day tire, they say if it's over like 5 years, don't even put it on the track. And I've seen guys that thought, oh, this tire looks great tread, never been used, but was like 6 or 7 years old, and they actually wrecked that bike like 3 times on that track day before they just spent the money and put new tires on, and then they were fine. These should be fine. So the plan is, I'm gonna get this thing running. We're gonna get this thing running. Oh, so we bought this thing for 400 bucks. We bought this thing for $400 at the auction. It just kind of sat there. No one bid on it. I would think I was the only guy who bid on it. And I wanna get this thing running. I'm pumped. How many miles does it have on it? It only has 11,000 miles. It does crank over though. We're gonna get this thing running right now. I got 400 bucks into it, plus auction fees, which ends up being like 580 bucks, which seems like way too much money for this bike. I think we can get this thing running for less than 100 bucks. And then I'm gonna take it on a big trip. That is my plan. All right, so let's do it. Something you noticed back then, you know, on a 750, this thing was pushing out 80 horsepower to the crank, probably about 70 to 65 horsepower to the wheels, but they were not concerned about big giant power, big giant wheels, because you didn't really have that huge power. You weren't pushing out 180 horsepower. It was that was enough to go straight, and they were worried about, you know, can the bike handle. All right, so here's my general strategy and goal when it comes to, well, I guess the goal is pretty obvious. The goal is getting the bike running. When it comes to getting old bikes, there's so many unknowns, you know what I mean? And we gotta get this thing, what's the best plan of action? All right, first, if there's bad gas in it, you get the bad gas out, drain the fuel out. I think in this scenario, there's just no gas in it. It's just empty. So that's actually pretty good. It does crank over. That's good. The engine's not seized up. What I'm gonna do is I want to spray some fuel directly into the carburetors and just see if I can get it to fire up. If it does fire up and it seems to run good, then maybe we'll throw new plugs in it. Then we will throw some fuel in it and see if the bike runs. If it doesn't fire up, then we'll also throw new plugs in it. And let's just see what happens. Now, I am not a mechanic, but what I'm showing you guys, basic, you know, small engine, how an engine works type of stuff. Fuel, plugs, clean the carburetor. It's as simple as taking it apart and putting it back the same way you put it back together, but then just clean all the stuff inside of it. Now, I'll probably what'll happen is I'll spend like 30 hours on this thing not getting anywhere, and then I'll take it to my mechanic Joe. He'll spend 20 minutes like tapping it with a hammer, and it'll run perfectly. That's just kind of what normally happens when I'm working on bikes like this. Old carburetor bike. I'm sure that the carburetors need to be synced. It's an inline 4, so it does have 4 carburetors that run independently, and you need to sync them. Use a vacuum gauge to sync them to make sure that they're all working, so the bike runs, you know, very smooth. So the reason I use fuel or gas instead of actual just spray, and I put gas in a spray bottle instead of using starting fluid, is the ether in a starting fluid for long periods of time is not really good. It's good for like a little squirt and then fire it up, but I mean, just spraying gas you're not gonna mess up anything with the engine, and it's easier and better for the engine. This thing just fired up. That's pretty awesome. Let's try it again. Now I can't actually access all of these, so I'm kind of spraying some of these from afar. So what we have established is that it kind of runs. Let's put fuel. Let's try to get it to run off its own fuel, and we're going to put fuel in the fuel system, and hopefully we can get it to run off of the carburetors. I'm also going to pull one of these spark plugs to see what it looks like. And listen, I know there's going to be so many people out there saying how dumb I am. I believe this is the choke right here. This thing right here. That's seized up. You come over here, and there's just no cable connected to the choke. So it must be, not sure what the deal with that is. Let's shoot for a goal. Let's see if I can ride this bike today. This is our handy dandy gas caddy. I really do love old bikes like this. The cool thing is the barriers of entry are cheap. I mean, you can find old bikes sitting in someone's yard for a couple $100. I bought this one at the auction. And then you can get it running for a couple $100. It doesn't have to be expensive to ride motorcycles. Now, is this the safest bike out there? I don't know. Our bike's the safest thing out there. I don't know. But there is something cool and exciting and like a little nostalgic for me. Although this bike is before my time, these things are still sitting around here, and I learned how to ride on an 80s bike. And most people will be surprised about it's tons of fun, how well these things ride. These were sport bikes at the time. And I think I'll be pretty surprised once I get it running. Fires up and it idles, kind of. I'm gonna drive this thing right now. That's amazing. This is kind of my MO. I get super excited. The bike's running, kind of running. Let's just jump on it. Let's take it for a ride without really checking the tire pressure or anything else. For some reason, I don't even, you would think, oh, I'll just drive around the block a little bit, driving around like the cul-de-sac or something like that. No, I'm just gone. Let's go to Hershey or something like that. This is often why I end up walking bikes home. But on the same side, if you haven't really walked a bike home or walked a bike a couple miles, are you really a motorcycle rider? Wow. I don't really feel any power. No, with bikes like this, all the power is going to be past like 6,000 RPMs. But, man, comfy. Big old giant banana seat. You could throw 2 girls on the back of this thing. You could, but you shouldn't. So I was actually thinking this was going to be a much bigger project than I was thinking. I was going to like rebuild the whole thing, not just put gas in it. Well, we'll see. Hold up, maybe I'm being a little too. Clutch is shifting great. The shifter was a little bit stiff, but now it feels awesome. Could I take this thing? Could I take this thing on a 700-mile trip to Georgia in a week to visit my family? So the last time I took an old bike on a long trip like this, the engine blew up halfway. We towed it home. The bike's been at the shop for the past 8 months. So this will probably work out better than that. Yes, I absolutely could. And I'm going to. It's settled, I'm doing it. This is running great. This is a comfortable ride. It's a 5-speed. Yes, it's a 5-speed. Let's see if these things are working. That is working. The tripometer is working, the odometer is working. This thing may have 11,000 miles on it, or it may have 11,000. Normally, the one thing I would do is I'd be like, all right, let's get some new tires on this thing. I think these tires are all right. I'll do a little better inspection. Sorry, guy. I'll do a little better inspection when I get back to the shop. I didn't think I was gonna be riding the bike today. And to be honest with you, the brakes don't feel that bad. I mean, they're stiff. This is only oh, we got dual rotors on the front. We're all right. So part of the ups and downs of buying an old motorcycle like this, one, the ups is, hey, this thing's running, I'm riding this thing sooner than what I thought. The downs are, I'm in the foothills of Georgia, walking this bike down the road with banjo music playing behind me. I don't know if that's the clutch giving up the ghost, or if this thing just doesn't, it's still not running completely right. Yeah, that's just I'm sure I need new plugs in this thing. At the very least, I need new plugs. Probably what I'll do is I'll get some, run some good fuel in there. Maybe throw some seafoam or something that might clean the carburetor a little bit better than what I'm willing to do right now, because the bike runs pretty good. And then put new plugs, change the oil, make sure tire pressure is good, and throw some saddlebags on here. Saddlebag, I got a cool tank bag I can put on the front. So while I was riding the bike, I noticed a couple things. The one thing, I realized why the choke was disconnected. These are supposed to be Mikuni carburetors. These are Amal carburetors from England. So I'm gonna assume, I'm sure if you were an old race guy, you would know that, oh, the Amal carburetors from England, they're the best, or whatever. I don't know that stuff. To make it easier, they put the choke right here. So it's on a little choke lever right here. Now it still is seized up, but that's why the choke's not up there. So I will take those carbs apart. I will end up replacing the spark plugs, changing the oil, checking the battery. I'll try to keep the battery, because I'm trying to keep this thing under $100 to get this thing ready to go. Battery could kill up most of that, or I could take a battery out of another bike. That's kind of cheating. So we'll get the battery all charged up, and it should be good to go. I'm surprised. I mean, this has a very naked Street Fighter ergonomics of the way it sits. The way the handlebars are like 5 or 6 inches higher than the triple clamp. It's actually very comfortable. My knees or my feet are pretty much right directly. The pegs are right directly under my buttocks. This thing is running great. Mirrors are awful. I'll put some real mirrors on it. Not doing anything for anybody. All right, let's go back to the shop. Let's wrap it up. I thought this was going to be a much bigger project. But look at this thing once over. Let's pull the plugs. Let's see what other else things we got to do to this. But I'm pumped. This thing's running pretty 80%, 85%. This runs better than the first bike I ever ran. Awesome. My plan was, when I bought this bike, and the reason I bought this bike, I was looking for a cheap bike to show people that you don't need to spend a lot of money to get a good, awesome, fun running bike, or to get into motorcycles. But then people would have the debate of, well, but you can't really take it on a big trip. Well, that's exactly what I want to do. And I would argue that taking a bike on a big trip, and it's bad, not bad things, but things breaking down, is part of the fun. That makes it more enjoyable. The fact that you're riding the bike and it just broke down, but you got it running, and now you're a little bit scared. Is it gonna break down again? So my sister is having a baby in the next couple days or a week down in Georgia. My wife will be going down there to help her out. A couple days later, I'll probably follow them and ride this down and try to make the trip the whole way to Georgia. I'm not sure if I'm gonna bring the bike back, if I'm gonna leave it there, if I'm just gonna put it on the back of the truck, bringing it back with the Versa haul. I'm not really sure, still trying to figure that out. But it should, it'll probably make it. As of right now, it's running pretty decent. I don't know, who knows what'll make it. All right guys, we will see you guys next time. Don't forget to subscribe.